Have you ever met someone who seemed to know you too well? Not just the surface details of your life, but the currents beneath it. They could look at you and sense your insecurities, your secret hopes, the pressure points you thought you had hidden from the world. At first, it feels almost magical, like being finally understood, finally seen. But soon, something shifts. The attention doesn't feel warm anymore. It feels invasive. They don't simply know you, they use what they know. And suddenly, that sense of being understood begins to resemble the sensation of being trapped. This is the paradox of the dark empath. On the outside, they carry the gift of empathy, sensitivity to the emotions of others, a heightened awareness of subtle moods and hidden pain. But beneath the surface, this sensitivity is fused with traits that are far less innocent: narcissism, shadow repression, and the drive to manipulate. Where the true empath feels what you feel in order to connect, the dark empath feels what you feel in order to control. Carl Jung once wrote that the most dangerous things are those that lurk in the unconscious. For him, the shadow, the repressed, denied aspects of the psyche, is not just an inner problem. It leaks into relationships, into society, into power dynamics. And when empathy is contaminated by this shadow, it stops being a bridge between souls and becomes a weapon sharpened by insight. Think of it this way. Empathy is like a light that allows one person to step into another's world. But if that light shines from a psyche that has not confronted its own darkness, then what it illuminates becomes vulnerable. The dark empath does not integrate what they see. They exploit it. They enter your inner world not as a healer, but as a thief. You may notice it in small moments, the way they recall your words, not to honor them, but to throw them back at you later. The way they sense your guilt and nudge it until you feel crushed by it. The way they mirror your values, your pain, your laughter, until you're no longer sure whether you're with a friend or a mask that has been carefully crafted to disarm you. And the most disquieting part is this: the dark empath doesn't always appear cruel. Often they seem charming, magnetic, endlessly understanding. Their talent is to appear as exactly what you've been looking for: the confidant, the ally, the one who gets you. But that very resonance is the trap. For what they offer in warmth, they take back in power. Jung warned that when the shadow is denied, it becomes monstrous. The dark empath is a living illustration of that warning. Sensitivity corrupted by repression, empathy turned into psychological warfare. They are not common, but when you encounter one, you remember, because the experience leaves you with a strange, unshakable feeling. They saw too much, and they saw it not to protect you, but to claim a piece of you. In this video, we will unravel the 5 warning signs of the dark empath. We'll see how each trait hides behind a mask of empathy, and how Jung's insights into shadow, persona, and projection reveal what is really happening beneath the surface. If you've ever felt drained, manipulated, or haunted by someone who understood you too well, this is for you, because knowledge is protection, and the first defense against the dark empath is to name what they are. Carl Jung believed that empathy, in its pure form, is a profound gift. It is the capacity to step outside of yourself, to inhabit another person's inner world, and to feel what they feel. For most people, empathy creates bonds of compassion and healing. It's what allows us to build trust, to share suffering, to walk alongside others in their struggles. But Jung also warned, no gift of the psyche is safe from corruption if the shadow remains unacknowledged. The shadow, in Jung's terms, is everything we refuse to see in ourselves: our repressed anger, our selfishness, our envy, our hunger for control, all the impulses that threaten the image we want to present. When these forces are denied, they do not vanish. They work underground, silently shaping our behavior, our relationships, and our desires. A person who refuses to confront their own darkness inevitably projects it onto others, seeing in the outside world the very traits they cannot admit in themselves. Now imagine empathy in the hands of such a psyche. Instead of serving as a bridge, empathy becomes a spotlight, exposing vulnerabilities that the person has no intention of honoring. They feel the pain of others, yes, but only so they can manipulate it. They detect insecurity, not to soothe it, but to press on it. They mirror affection, not because they feel it, but because it creates dependency. This is empathy fused with shadow, and it is far more dangerous than cold indifference. Jung often wrote about the archetype of the trickster, the figure who plays with masks, who deceives, who uses knowledge of others to destabilize and control. The dark empath is a modern psychological manifestation of this archetype. Their intelligence is emotional, but not compassionate. Their awareness is sharp, but not healing. They can enter another's psychic space with precision, yet instead of offering care, they rearrange what they find for their own advantage. It is important to stress, not every manipulator is a dark empath. Many narcissists lack real empathy altogether. What makes the dark empath distinct and particularly unsettling is the fusion of true sensitivity with manipulative intent. They do feel what others feel. They do notice subtleties most people overlook. But rather than allowing that awareness to cultivate humility and connection, they weaponize it. It is empathy turned inside out, empathy poisoned by shadow. And here lies Jung's crucial insight. The problem is not empathy itself, but the refusal of inner integration. If the shadow is denied, empathy cannot stay pure. It becomes a double-edged blade, cutting both ways, revealing truths, then using those truths as shackles. Jung argued that individuation, the lifelong process of uniting the conscious and unconscious self, is the only path to prevent such corruption. Without it, sensitivity becomes predation, and awareness becomes domination. This is why the dark empath is so difficult to recognize at first. They are not icy, detached, or obviously cruel. They are warm, engaging, apparently trustworthy. They may even believe their own story of being caring and understanding. But watch closely, and you will see the shadow at work. Their empathy is not integration, it is projection. It is not wholeness, it is manipulation. And so, to recognize the dark empath, you must learn the signs, the specific ways empathy is twisted into control. In the next sections, we will uncover these 5 signs in detail. The first is the most chilling, emotional X-ray vision, used not to heal, but to wound.
Some people can read emotions the way others read books. A glance, a pause in your voice, the tension in your shoulders, it all speaks volumes to them. With a true empath, this sensitivity feels like a blessing. They notice when you are unwell, when you're struggling, when you need comfort. But with a dark empath, the same gift transforms into something predatory. They use this emotional X-ray vision not to support you, but to calculate you. Imagine confiding in someone about a failure. You expect empathy, maybe encouragement. But instead, that same story reappears later, twisted, sharpened, used against you in an argument. The dark empath files it away, like an attorney keeping evidence. They remember not because they care, but because it gives them leverage. This is one of their defining traits. They know exactly where your weak points are, and they press on them with surgical precision. If you are vulnerable to guilt, they know how to trigger it. If you fear abandonment, they know how to hint at leaving. If you crave approval, they know the exact moment to withdraw it, leaving you desperate to earn it back. To the outside world, they appear insightful, even caring. But to those caught in their orbit, it feels like being dissected alive. Carl Jung warned that the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine archetypes, can become distorted when they are not consciously integrated. For men, the anima may twist into emotional manipulation. For women, the animus can harden into intellectual domination. In the dark empath, this distortion often appears as a kind of psychic seduction. They sense your inner child, your hidden wounds, and then they play with them. They know how to wound you because, on some level, they feel it too. But instead of offering healing, they offer a knife disguised as a hand. You might notice this manipulation in subtle patterns, a comment that seems supportive at first, but plants doubt. A question that sounds innocent, but reopens an old scar. A joke that touches the one place you didn't want exposed. And always the uncanny sense that they know too much, that they have mapped your psyche more quickly than seems possible. The danger is that many people confuse this with intimacy. We are conditioned to believe that someone who gets us so quickly must care. But the truth is darker. What feels like closeness may simply be exposure. The dark empath has no problem walking into the deepest rooms of your psyche because they have no intention of protecting what they find there. This is why victims of dark empaths often feel both magnetized and unsettled. There is a thrill in being seen, but also a dread in being so vulnerable. And that dread is not paranoia, it is wisdom. Because when empathy is stripped of integrity, it becomes surveillance. You are not being loved, you are being studied. This is the first sign. The eerie, unshakable sense that someone not only sees your emotions, but is storing them, calculating them, preparing to use them. Jung would call this the shadow's intelligence, sharp, cunning, but soulless. It is not insight, it is intrusion.
If the first sign of the dark empath is their unsettling ability to see through you, the second is their ability to cover this predation with charm. They rarely appear threatening at first. In fact, they are often magnetic. The kind of person who lights up a room, who seems endlessly attentive, who makes you feel like you are the most important person in their orbit. Their charm is not incidental. It is the mask that conceals the predator. Carl Jung described the persona as the mask we wear in society, the image we construct to meet expectations, to function within the collective. The persona is not inherently bad. Everyone has one. But for the dark empath, the persona becomes an art form, a weaponized disguise. They perfect the smile, the tone, the gestures that disarm suspicion. They mirror your values, your humor, your worldview. They present themselves as precisely what you want them to be. And behind this carefully constructed persona lies a hunger for control. Think of how predators in nature camouflage themselves. A jungle cat blends into the foliage not because it loves the leaves, but because it loves the hunt. The dark empath's charm functions in exactly this way. Their apparent warmth makes you lower your guard. Their attentiveness makes you open up faster than you should. Their flattery makes you crave more of their approval. And by the time you sense something is wrong, they have already slipped inside your defenses. What makes this charm so dangerous is that it feels genuine. Unlike the cold manipulator, the dark empath can laugh with you, cry with you, share stories that appear vulnerable. They may reveal fragments of their own pain, just enough to make you trust them, but never so much that you can see their true self. This selective disclosure strengthens the illusion. If they're opening up, they must be real. But in truth, what you are seeing is a mask of calculated authenticity. Jung warned that the danger of the persona is that it can become so polished, so convincing, that even the individual begins to believe it. The dark empath often identifies with their own charm. They may sincerely think of themselves as good, kind, even selfless. but the unconscious shadow is always at work beneath the surface. Their kindness has strings. Their warmth is conditional. Their attention is a hook. You may notice this charm most clearly in the early stages of a relationship, whether romantic, professional, or social. The dark empath knows how to create the perfect first impression. They know how to read the room, how to charm authority, how to make outsiders envious of your special bond. But slowly, the mask slips. And when it does, you realize that the very qualities that drew you in, the laughter, the care, the intimacy, were not free gifts, but investments. Investments designed to yield control. This is the second sign. Charm that is too perfect, warmth that feels almost staged, attentiveness that draws you in but leaves you indebted. It is not love. It is camouflage. And in the language of Jung, it is the persona at its most deceptive, the mask that hides not insecurity, but predation. One of the most uncanny powers of the dark empath is their ability to act as a mirror. You speak, they reflect. You reveal, they echo. You share a belief, and suddenly it's their belief too. At first, this feels extraordinary, like finding a soulmate, a kindred spirit, someone who finally understands. But over time, the reflection begins to feel too precise, too polished. You start to wonder, are they really like me, or are they just reflecting me back to myself? Mirroring is not inherently sinister. In healthy relationships, people naturally mirror one another, adopting each other's tone, sharing gestures, finding rhythm in conversation. This unconscious exchange builds trust and intimacy. But the dark empath uses mirroring not to bond, but to bind. By reflecting your values, your humor, your pain, they create the illusion of profound similarity. And when you feel that someone is just like you are far more likely to trust them, to open up, to let down your guard. Carl Jung described projection as one of the most powerful forces in the psyche. We see in others what we cannot see in ourselves. The dark empath knows this, perhaps not consciously, but instinctively. They understand that if they present themselves as your reflection, you will project onto them all the qualities you most desire. You will see them as loyal, kind, trustworthy, aligned with your soul. But in truth, they are simply wearing your image back at you, like a mask of glass. The danger of this manipulation is that it creates dependency. If you believe you have found someone who understands you in a way no one else does, you will cling to them, even when cracks begin to show. The dark empath knows this. They know that the more you see yourself in them, the less you will question them. And so, they mirror selectively. They amplify the traits that make you feel safe and diminish those that would make you suspicious. The mirror becomes not just a reflection, but a trap. This is why so many victims of dark empaths describe the relationship as intoxicating at first. It feels like destiny, like synchronicity, like Jung's concept of the anima or animus encounter, meeting the hidden opposite within yourself through another person. But what begins as enchantment often ends as entanglement. Because the reflection was never a real person, it was a manipulation designed to ensnare. You can detect this sign in subtle ways. Do they agree with you too quickly? Do they adopt your opinions with unnatural speed? Do they seem to shift their personality depending on who they are with? The dark empath's mirror is rarely stable. It adjusts constantly, not to reveal truth, but to maintain control. This is the third sign, the mirror that manipulates. What feels like intimacy may simply be imitation. What feels like being understood may simply be projection. Jung warned that projection blinds us to reality, keeping us chained to illusions. The dark empath thrives in that blindness. Because as long as you are staring into their mirror, you will not see what is standing behind it. By now, the mask of the dark empath should feel clearer.
They see too much, they charm too well, they mirror too perfectly. But what truly exposes them are the ways they feed on control. The next two signs reveal the predator beneath the disguise, their subtle pleasure in emotional power, and the draining effect they leave on others. Sign 4. Pleasure and power. Most people dislike conflict. Even those who occasionally manipulate often feel guilt afterward. But the dark empath shows a different pattern. They seem to enjoy it. You may catch it in the flicker of a smile when you stumble, in the satisfaction in their tone when you doubt yourself, in the calm they display when you are unraveling. This is not normal empathy. This is schadenfreude, a weaponized through sensitivity. Because they know your inner world so well, their influence over you is unusually precise. They can tilt your emotions like a conductor guiding an orchestra. One word to make you feel guilty, another to make you crave reassurance, another to make you doubt your worth. And the chilling truth is that they like this control. It gives them a sense of superiority, of mastery, of secret dominance. Jung would say this is the shadow indulging in its own darkness, unchecked by conscience or integration. Sign 5. Emotional vampirism. And yet their hunger does not stop at control. The dark empath also feeds. Spend enough time with one and you will notice a pattern. You walk away from interactions feeling exhausted, drained, even hollow. It is not just that they take your energy, it is that they consume it. Their presence may excite you at first, but the aftermath always carries depletion. This is why some psychologists describe such personalities as emotional vampires. Jung might not have used that term, but he spoke often of psychic parasites, unconscious complexes that feed on the vitality of others. The dark empath embodies this archetype perfectly. They draw life from your reactions, your anger, your guilt, your tears, your confessions. Whether positive or negative, your emotional energy fuels them while leaving you emptier each time. The paradox is that many people feel guilty for noticing this drain. Maybe I'm too sensitive, they think. But the truth is simple. Healthy empathy leaves both people nourished. Dark empathy leaves one person depleted and the other subtly empowered. That imbalance is not an accident. It is the design. Together, these two signs form the heart of the dark empath's shadow. They not only manipulate emotions, they feed on them. Their pleasure and power and their vampiric hunger reveal that empathy, when fused with the unconscious shadow, becomes predation. They're not satisfied with understanding you. They want to own you, and they want to feed from your emotional life force. This is why awareness is so vital. If you sense that someone seems almost pleased by your pain, or if you leave every interaction feeling drained, you may not be imagining it. You may be dealing with a dark empath, and Jung's wisdom reminds us, the only defense against such shadow is light. The light of awareness, of boundaries, of choosing to step out of their web.
Now that the mask of the dark empath has been stripped away, the question remains. What can you do if you encounter one? How do you protect yourself from someone who knows your wounds, wears the mask of charm, mirrors your soul, delights in control, and drains your energy? The answer is not to become paranoid, but to become conscious. Awareness is the only true antidote. Carl Jung emphasized individuation, the process of integrating the shadow and becoming whole as humanity's deepest task. Individuation is not about perfection or purity, but about consciousness. When you know your own shadow, when you are familiar with your guilt, your fears, your desire for approval, you are far less vulnerable to someone who tries to weaponize them. The dark empath thrives on your blind spots. Illuminate them, and you take away their strongest tool. The first line of defense is boundaries. Dark empaths often test limits, probing how much they can take before you resist. Set clear lines. If they guilt-trip you, refuse to carry the burden. If they charm you too quickly, slow the pace. If they mirror you suspiciously, ask yourself whether the resemblance feels natural or manufactured. Boundaries are not walls, they are signals of self-respect. And to the dark empath, self-respect is kryptonite. The second defense is discernment. Pay attention to how you feel after interactions. True empathy leaves you calmer, lighter, more alive. Dark empathy leaves you unsettled, drained, doubtful. Trust that evidence. Your body and emotions often recognize danger before your rational mind does. Jung wrote that the psyche contains wisdom deeper than reason. Listen to it. The third defense is detachment from illusion. The dark empath's greatest trick is to make you believe they are your soulmate, your mirror, your rescuer. But remember, genuine connection is built slowly through consistency, honesty, and humility. If someone seems too perfect too quickly, if the reflection feels uncanny, step back. Illusion is their weapon. Refusal to cling to illusion is your shield. And finally, the deepest protection is your own integration. Jung warned that what you resist persists. If you deny your own shadow, you will forever be vulnerable to those who manipulate it. But when you face your inner darkness, your envy, your rage, your loneliness, your need, it no longer frightens you. And once it no longer frightens you, it can no longer be weaponized against you. The dark empath loses their grip when you embrace your wholeness. You cannot control whether such personalities exist. They always have and always will. But you can control whether you are ensnared by them. Remember this, the dark empath only has power where there is unconsciousness. Every time you bring light to your own shadow, every time you stand in your boundaries, every time you choose awareness over illusion, you reclaim your freedom. Carl Jung warned, the shadow, when denied, becomes a monster. The dark empath is living proof of this. But monsters are only as powerful as the fear we give them. And the moment you refuse to play their game, their mask begins to crack. The only true defense is light. Your awareness, your boundaries, your refusal to be a puppet in someone else's drama. For the dark empath may know your wounds, but they cannot control a soul that has made peace with its own shadow.